Hey, let me ask you a question. Do you see all of the different advertisements out there about how to actually build a app, and you're wondering how can you take an idea and turn it into $1 million concept? Well, listen, stick to this video because I'm going to reveal to you the 4-step process of how to build $1 million app. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Justin Burns, and I'm the founder of a multitude of apps, specifically Maestro.com, which has thousands of paying customers, and I've spent over $1 million in development. So I wasn't just one of these guys who's just started, vibe coding or learning how to use AI to build an app. I have the battle scars, the wounds, everything you can even imagine to prove it. And in this video, I want to actually share with you so that you go through the right process of taking an idea and turning it into what we call a 1% app or $1 million app. So back in 2016, I was really burnt out. I was stressed out. I had a advertising agency online, and customers were, I had so many scheduled calls, and I was burnt out. I had back-to-back calls, and I was completely stressed out. And then one day, one of my clients, who was actually a software founder, he said, "You want to go to this tech conference with me?" And so I went to this tech conference. I decided to go. And I remember like this light bulb moment went off. And I realized that over the next decade or more from the period of time that I went to this conference, technology was going to take over. Right. So I said to myself, like, how can I get in? I had no experience. And so I, reached to my client. I said, "Hey, can you actually show me how you built this technology company?" And he said, "Look, I'll help you out, but you're going to have to go through the process." So I dove right in. I decided to build this product because I was a copywriter and I had an advertising agency. I decided, and this was before AI, to build a copywriting tool, and it was called Script Engage. All right. And so people just put in some questions and it spit out all of their copy, like their email copy and so many different tools. So, we launched, and I spent like $20,000 developing this product, and crickets. That's what happens to many people, right? They get an idea, they decide to just start building the product, and they start prototyping, and they hire a developer, and they try to go to market. And that's why 95% of apps either don't make it to the market or fail. So I experienced, years and years of frustration. And then I kind of came up with this framework and formula where it completely shifted and changed my entire process of doing this. So I went from a guy who wasn't even a techie guy, I didn't have a co-founder, to now we have over 30,000 customers. And I tell you that story because everything is about the process. And what I'll tell you is that frameworks make you speed ahead to success. And so that's why I kind of started off the video talking about, like, listen, I have the battle scars, I have the t-shirts, I have whatever else you want to kind of throw in there to say, like, this is the 4-step method of how you can grow an idea and live through the golden age, because that's exactly what we are living in. Listen, the tech industry is a $41 trillion industry, ladies and gentlemen, $41 trillion. So I would say you want to grab your piece of the pie, because if you want to build $1 million app, you're going to go through these 4 steps. All right, let's jump into it. All right. So the first step, all right, first strategy in building $1 million app is you want to have your niche more specifically. You've probably heard this saying that the riches are in the niches, but a lot of people don't break this down, right? See, the riches are in the niches, but it depends on, you have to have a working idea that's proven in another market, which we're going to talk about next. Okay. But what you want to do is describe a specific niche, and then you want to describe the problem that niche is having. And most people are very general. When you ask them who their customer is, they typically will say something to the extent of, "I help business owners," or "I help creators." And that is what we call bland sauce. All right. Something completely bland that you won't attract your ideal customer. Another, what's really also great and why you want to focus on having an ideal customer is that, different markets, communicate in certain languaging, and messaging is so important as you relate and connect to your audience. Okay. And so there's certain languaging patterns. Like if I was to have a group of, say I went into a group of, let's just say pilots, and they're talking about the plane, there are different parts of the plane. Well, guess what's going to happen? I'm not going to understand most of the time if they start going into, oh, here's what the plane does. Here's the rotator cuff. I'm just making up stuff, but like you get my drip, right? So it's important that you understand who you're targeting, because as you start to, put out your product and you start to have messaging, it is going to be so important that you understand who it is that you are targeting. All right. Step number 2 is called ideation, also referred to as the idea matrix. Choosing your idea is going to be so important, and most people don't choose an idea properly. There are 2 ways that you can choose a concept for an app. Number 1 is a new concept, which is far in between because there's so many ideas out there. And I'm not saying that you don't have a new idea that hasn't been heard of, but more than likely there's a sort of version of an app out there. But if you just so happen to have a new idea, here's what you have to go through. You have to go through and talk to customers, because why would you want to do like 99% of people, which is just start building? This is often the step that people miss. And so ideation is so important, because you want to go out there and talk to customers to make sure that you're not building something that's just going to sit in the cloud collecting dust, or worse, doesn't make any money. Number 2 is my favorite concept. Number 2 of building $1 million app idea is to have an idea that already exists and you improve upon that idea to make it better. Just to let you know, no matter how much money a tech company has raised, they cannot do everything right. So typically they're missing a couple of these components. Number 1, it could be pricing. Maybe they're priced too high. They also can be priced too low. Number 2, one of the other opportunities is maybe they have not enough features, right? They're missing features. Most companies can't do all these components right. And then my favorite one, the third one, is bad UX or UI, which is AKA design. Most software, most apps have really, really bad customer onboarding and have really, really bad user experience. So you can win. Listen to me. Come here for a second. You can win on just that alone, is having bad user experience. So I want you to start to think about these things and figure out how you can dominate the marketplace. All right, let's move on to step number 3, which is prototyping. Prototyping is so important because prototyping has a couple components to it. You have your front end part of prototyping and you have your back end part of prototyping. Front end is the design of what people will see, and then the back end is the features. So the first part of prototyping is you want to, look at, hey, is this product like, how does this look? And so there's a couple sites you can go to. You can go to producthunt.com to also see different products and how they are positioned. And then there's also dribble.com, where you can also look at different dashboards and get ideas. I like to take those ideas, put it into like a Google Drive folder, and start to study what they are doing properly. So that's front end development. Back end is the features. So usually there's a more complex system that I go through, which is like user stories and kind of mapping out different features. But for simplicity's sake of this video, you want to map out a product spec sheet so that you know exactly what is going into your app as it relates to features. So what are the different steps that you want your customers to take? You want to be very specific about this so you know exactly what this is. Case in point, I used to skip this step. I used to not have a product spec sheet. And so one of the things that it cost me a lot of money, and if you want a developer to take advantage of you, don't have a product spec sheet. Of course, we're talking about building an app, and that leads to the next step is you need to build, right? Which is the next step of the equation, is building. So how do you build? Well, you can actually take a product, right? Take your idea, take your product spec sheet, and then use something like Lovable, Bolt. There are so many other ones like Create Anything. Lovable is one of my favorites because, again, it's easy for beginners. And then the next steps that we're going to go over is distribution. What is distribution? Well, you probably heard of traffic, right? You know that you need people coming to your site in order to be able to take advantage of your app. right? But the biggest challenge that it comes to, getting people is distribution. Well, think of it like a highway, right? A highway system. Traffic is just one way, right? But there's two ways, right? So you want, traffic to flow in and out. You want distribution. Distribution means that people sign up for your app, they're excited, and they go tell somebody else. So it's a two-way street. They're coming in, they experience some level of result, and then they come right back out, and then they're sending other people back in. Okay. Now there's other ways that you can get distribution, like podcasting. Like there's just some ideas. On my favorite one is paid traffic, because when you are able to advertise your app, you have a competitive advantage than say like selling a digital product, because people trust technology more. All right. But the first step before you start running traffic is you want to make sure that you have a product that people want, right? You want to have what we call product market fit. You want to actually have a product that people want to consume, that they love. And that is what we call product market fit. All right. So if you enjoyed this video about taking an idea and turning it into a 1% $1 million app, please share, like, and subscribe for more of these videos. I want to help you to grow your business. And listen, we also have a summit that we host, details below, to show you step by step how you can take an idea and turn it into a profitable app. You want to make sure you don't miss this. Click below, register. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.